The wind howled outside, rattling the windows of Emma's cozy little apartment. Inside, the air was still and heavy with the scent of lavender and old books. Moonlight streamed through the gaps in the curtains, painting stripes across the worn wooden floor. It was the kind of night that felt like a storybook, tucked away in a quiet corner of the city. But for Emma, it was turning into a nightmare. She stood frozen in the doorway, her eyes wide with terror, her pajamas crumpled around her legs. In her hand, she clutched a lamp, its cord dangling limply, the bulb casting grotesque shadows that danced on the walls. She wanted to scream, to run, to do anything but stand there in the suffocating silence of her own home. For tonight, her sanctuary had become a tomb. The sound that had drawn her into this room, the one that had shattered the illusion of safety, was still ringing in her ears, whispering in the hollows of her heart. A soft, barely audible scratching, like claws on wood. It hadn't been there before. She was sure of it. Hadn't heard it during the day when the city's clamor was a constant guest. She forced herself to take a step forward, her gaze sweeping the room, searching for the source of the sound. The apartment was small, its walls adorned with mismatched artwork and trinkets. A bookshelf sagged under the weight of countless novels, their spines offering silent witness to her solitude. A half-finished painting leaned against an easel by the window, splattered with colors that mocked her growing fear. There was nothing out of place, nothing that could explain the dread that had coiled itself around her throat. Yet it was clear that she wasn't alone. Something was here with her, watching, waiting. She tried to rationalize it away, told herself that it was just a mouse or a loose wire, anything to quell the hammering of her heart. But as the night wore on, the silence became a living thing, pressing against her, suffocating her with its suffocating embrace. Then she saw it, or rather, she felt it. A movement in the corner of her eye, a whisper of shadow where there had been none before. She whipped her head around, her eyes straining to pierce the gloom, but it was gone. As the minutes ticked by, the tension in the room thickened. Emma felt trapped, hunted. Each creak of the floorboard, each rustle of wind through the trees outside sent fresh jolts of fear through her. And then it happened again, the scratching. Louder this time, more insistent. This time it came from under her bed. The bed, a hand-me-down from her grandmother, was an unassuming wooden frame with a lumpy mattress, but now it was a portal to something sinister, something that had been lurking in the darkness, patiently waiting for her to come closer. Her breath hitched in her throat as the scratching grew louder still, accompanied by a low, guttural growl that seemed to emanate from the very depths of the earth. It was primal, terrifying, and it was real. With shaking hands, Emma reached for the lamp switch, plunging the room into darkness. Her heart pounded against her ribs, a frantic tattoo in the silence. As her eyes adjusted to the gloom, she saw it. A pair of luminous eyes peering at her from under the bed, gleaming like twin embers in the darkness. They were followed by more, slithering out like serpents, coiling around the bed frame. Then, as if summoned by her terror, the growling grew louder, echoing in the confined space, reverberating in her bones. Driven by a sudden surge of adrenaline, Emma scrambled back, knocking over a chair in her haste. The noise outside seemed to fade away, leaving her enveloped in a bubble of fear and anticipation. She could feel the creature's gaze boring into her, and she knew, with a sickening certainty, that it was watching, waiting for her to make the next move. She wanted to scream, to claw at the darkness, to tear down the walls of her prison. But she couldn't. She was frozen, paralyzed by a terror that threatened to consume her. Then, as abruptly as it began, the growling ceased. The silence returned, heavier, more oppressive than before. The eyes in the darkness seemed to wink out, leaving her in a world of suffocating quiet. Her breathing was ragged, her body trembling, and she felt as though she were trapped in a waking nightmare. The scratching, the growling, they echoed in her mind, taunting her, daring her to confront the horror that lurked beneath her bed. But she couldn't bring herself to move. She was caught in a battle between flight and fight, her reason screaming at her to escape. her primal instincts urging her to stay put. Slowly, ever so slowly, the minutes ticked by. The silence stretched, becoming a physical presence in the room. And as the clock chimed midnight, she made her choice. She would face her fear. With a deep breath, she forced herself to take a step forward. The bed frame loomed over her, its shadow a menacing silhouette against the wall. She hesitated, then reached out a trembling hand and pushed aside the heavy drapes. Underneath, she saw it. Or rather, she saw nothing. No creature, no monster, just dust and darkness. She peered deeper into the recesses of the bed, but it was of no use. Whatever had been there had vanished. Confused and shaken, she emerged from the bedroom and scanned the rest of the apartment. Nothing appeared out of place. Yet she couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. She checked the windows, making sure they were locked, her gaze lingering on the street below. The city lights twinkled serenely, oblivious to the turmoil in her own little world. In the living room, she found the front door slightly ajar. She frowned, wondering if she had left it open earlier. But as she approached, a glint of moonlight on glass caught her eye. She bent down and picked up a shard that had fallen from the window pane. Examining it closely, she noticed a series of fine scratches marring its surface, almost as if someone or something had tried to pry it open from the outside. Her heart skipped a beat. Had someone been in her apartment while she was there? Was she in danger? Panic threatened to engulf her, but she fought to keep it at bay. Moving swiftly, she dialed 911, her fingers trembling on the phone. But before she could speak, the line went dead. She tried to call back, but the connection was gone. There was no dial tone, no voice on the other end, only a disconcerting silence. Had the line been cut? Was she being watched? Fear tightened its grip on her, squeezing the breath from her lungs. She needed to get out, to find help, to escape the suffocating sense of dread that was seeping into her bones. But as she turned to leave, she noticed a small piece of paper lying on the floor, its edge curled and singed as if by a flame. Curiosity warred with fear, but the morbid curiosity won out. She cautiously approached and picked it up, her hands shaking. The paper was blank except for a single word scrawled across it in what looked like blood. Emma's breath hitched in her throat. Slowly, she unfolded the paper, her eyes widening in disbelief. On the other side, hidden from view, was a message. "Run!" It was written in her neat, familiar handwriting. Had she written this herself? Why? Why would she have written this and then forgotten about it? But then she remembered the scratching under her bed, the growling, the eyes. They weren't figments of her imagination. They had been real. And if she had written this note, who had erased the rest of it? Who was trying to warn her to tell her to run? Before she could dwell on it any longer, the scratching started again, this time coming from the closet. The old wooden door creaked ominously, its brass handle twisting slowly as if an unseen hand were turning it. Terror lent speed to her movements as she stumbled back, her eyes darting around the room for an escape. But there was none. She was trapped. With a sickening lurch, the closet door swung open, revealing a yawning blackness that seemed to swallow the light. From its depths, she heard the creature's growl, closer now, hungrier. It was coming for her. She could see the outline of something large and dark taking shape in the gloom, its eyes burning like hot coals in the darkness. Adrenaline surged through her veins, propelling her into action. She lunged for the window, flinging it open and scrambling onto the fire escape. As she climbed down the ladder, the wind whipping around her, she dared not look back. She didn't want to see what was emerging from her closet, what was stalking her, what was hunting her. She kept climbing, rung by rung, her fingers digging into the cold metal, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. Then she heard it behind her, the sound of heavy footsteps on the fire escape getting closer. Faster, faster. She scrambled down the ladder, her feet slipping on the metal grates, the sound of her pursuer gaining on her echoing in her ears. She burst through the door at the bottom of the fire escape and found herself in a narrow alley, its brick walls pressing close, cutting off the sliver of moonlight above. In the distance, she heard a guttural roar, the sound of frustration, of rage, of hunger. Whatever it was, it couldn't get to her here. She was safe, or so she thought. Because in the darkness ahead, she saw another pair of glowing eyes, twin embers in the gloom, watching, waiting. And she knew, with a certainty that chilled her to the bone, that she was not alone.